welcome to The Big Fight. I'm Nidhi Razdan. When Prime Minister Modi talked about sabka vishwas soon after his re-election last month, many believed he was making a real effort to reach out to India's minorities, that perhaps this massive mandate could see a change in the way minorities, read Muslims, are looked at and dealt with by the ruling establishment and those who support it. But this past week, the headlines have been dominated by the haunting video of a 24-year-old Muslim man who was beaten up brutally by a mob in Jharkhand on suspicion of stealing a motorcycle. Disturbing videos show him being forced to chant slogans of Jai Shri and Jai Hanuman. This year alone, there have been 11 hate crimes recorded in India and almost all the victims have been Muslim. If you look at Parliament, in the world's largest democracy where nearly 200 million people are Muslims, there are only 27 Muslim MPs and none of them are from the BJP. Do these hate crimes and the disproportionate representation of Muslims mean that minorities have a reason to live in fear, or are those fears exaggerated? As always on The Big Fight, we'll introduce you to our terrific panel and begin by giving all of them 1 minute each for their opening statements. And I'd like to begin with Mr. Asaduddin Owaisi, Lok Sabha MP. Mr. Owaisi, your 1 minute starts now. Do you believe that minorities in India have a reason to live in fear?
Well, minorities in India don't have to live in fear. But the government in power, which has taken oath on constitution, is not doing enough. And it's in fact, since they came into power in 2014, all these lumpen elements have been emboldened. And it's very unfortunate that the Prime Minister does not want to outright condemn it. The example that I can give is the ANI interview when the Prime Minister was asked about mob lynching. And in the name of cow, he said it is wrong, but we must respect the sentiment. Here also we see that the Prime Minister talks about sabka vishwas, but when it comes to Rajya Sabha, he says don't blame the entire state. It is the government in power which has to take the responsibility, because in Jharkhand, in last 3 years, 18 incidents of mob lynching have taken place. And what happened in the parliament is nothing but dog whistle politics, because the 25 odd Muslim MPs, whenever they went and took oath, deliberately by looking at them, all these slogans were made.
Mr. Owaisi, your 1 minute is up and you'll get a chance to talk about this in some more detail. Geeta Bhatt is a political analyst affiliated to the RSS. Geeta Bhatt, do minorities have a reason to live in fear under Modi 2.0?
You see, well, Nidhi, I think it is rather unfortunate that, there are certain people in this country who have become prisoners of this binary between minority and majority, and this is how they try to define secularism, which I think is very unfortunate, because this is not how the historical tradition of India has been. And even, our constitution makers, they never thought like that. We can look at the Constituent Assembly debates where Tajammul Hussain and H.C. Mukherjee, who was a practicing Christian, and he said that if we are going to talk in terms of minorities based on religion, then we cannot talk of one people, one nation. And Tajammul Hussain said that historically, the word minority does not fit into Indian culture, because we can see that in India, the majorities, they never attacked over any other people. So in this context, when, when there are crimes, or when there are law and order situations, when there are, mob lynchings, as such, a social...
Time's up, Geeta Bhatt. You'll get a chance.
Social problem, it should not be related to religions.
Law and order problem, social problem. Farah Naqvi, your thoughts?
Look, when someone who glorifies Mahatma Gandhi's assassin enters parliament to thundering applause, then is that something that the minorities of India need to worry about, or is that something all of India needs to worry about? When you said, you're saying the BJP has a wonderful mandate, 303 members elected in the Lok Sabha, not one of them that can represent the voices, the fears, and comes from a background that the third largest Muslim population in the world is not represented by the BJP today. Is that something that the BJP should worry about, the minorities alone should worry about, or all of India should worry about? Look, the many discussions are taking place about fear of the bogeyman, only with reference to Muslims or to minorities. Is there injustice? Is there fear? Of course, injustice has two words. Tabriz Ansari, a brutality. Wait, let me finish. That has broken our hearts. But just one second.
No,
I
have to just finish. Just finish one line. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere.
Okay, I will come back to you on that point. Mamta Kalia of the BJP is with us.
Yeah. So this, this whole narrative has been constructed and built very carefully by few pseudo-liberalists who say that the minorities are not safe in India, and they are not safe with Modi's led government. Modi ji had spoken very clearly in upper house 2 days back that I am pained and nobody accepts the lynching, and we don't approve of lynching, and whoever is involved in lynching will be given a strict punishment, and law will take its own course. This is what the stand which government has taken, and no one in this government is approving of lynching at all ever. This is the government who's standing with minorities and who's standing specially and mainly with the Muslim fraternity. You talk about as soon as they resume the office after 2019 elections, they announced the scholarship for the Muslims students. They talked about modernization of madrasa, and they have again come for the triple talaq bill.
Okay, time's up. Mihira Sood is a leading human rights lawyer and joins us this evening. Mihira, go ahead.
Yes, I think that there are reasons for everyone in India to be concerned, and particularly minorities whose concerns are much more tangible and hit home much closer. It is not just a question of this particular government or leaders of this government. It is a question of who have they emboldened, and who are they continuing to embolden by their selective silence on issues, by the kind of narrative they choose to spin by trying to justify mob lynchings, or by bringing in things like motives, theft, cattle slaughter, etc., and trying to deflect the narrative away from what is a horrifically violent crime by trying to bring in possible justifications for it, as if there could ever be any justification for a crime like this. By bringing in issues like, yes, but you cannot call Jharkhand a lynching capital just because it is their own government, whereas, there was no problem with Modi calling Delhi a rape capital because it was the government of another party.
Okay, your 1 minute is up, Mihira. Okay, so the last speaker today is Farah Mustafa, the Vice Chancellor of the Nalsa University of Law. Mr. Mustafa, go ahead.
Nidhi, since reference has been made to the Constituent Assembly debates, I would say when we were framing the Constitution, the founders were convinced that the universal right to equality will not be enough for the minorities. And therefore they said that we would take the next step because special protection is required for the minorities. It is wrong to say that the religious minorities are something very bad. The Constitution itself talks of both religious as well as linguistic minorities. I fully agree with Farah that this should worry every citizen of the country. First 3-4 decades after independence, the main question bothering Muslims and minorities was the issue of security. Then they started talking about development and affirmative action. We are back to square one, where the issue of security and freedom from fear has again become the central issue.
Okay, well,
and
Mr.
this,
Mustafa,
I feel, is not right.
All right. So I'm going to take some of the points that you've all made in your opening comments to begin this debate. And I want to begin with what Mamta Kalia of the BJP said, Mr. Owaisi, which was the Prime Minister's statement the other day about what happened in Jharkhand. Was that, according to you, enough? Or do you feel that it was a very qualified statement that I condemn this lynching, but, there is a but? And that, I think, becomes a problem for many.
Well, the Prime Minister 2 years ago, 3 years ago have talked about in the same language, which has not stopped. The Prime Minister must understand, and I'm sure he understands now, that these are the forces which have been unleashed by the sister organizations of the BJP and RSS. They have created a Frankenstein, which is a threat to right to life, and right to life, it belongs to a human being. As far as the Prime Minister is concerned, Prime Minister must outrightly condemn violence. He has used the Jharkhand state feeling. The same thing happened in 2002. So I'm pretty much sure that this will continue because BJP and RSS have unleashed a demon, which is not going to stop. We will, as a community, will have to live with this, and I'm sure that I don't know where are the liberal Hindus or whatever it is you call them. But as far as Muslims are concerned, at the drop of a hat, take the instance of what happened to a taxi driver in Mumbai. He was beaten up. So there are so many incidents which are taking place, but I still feel if the BJP and the Prime Minister in particular seriously and sincerely decides, they can bring an end to this.
How do you think so? Because the Prime Minister has spoken more than once on this issue, as you yourself pointed out. He spoke on this specific lynching literally days after it happened. In the past, there have been long gaps. So what does the Prime Minister, according to you, need to do?
Giving a ticket to, I'm not privy to the BJP, but if you give a ticket to Jayant Sinha, who garlanded the killers, if you have Mahesh Sharma, who went to the killers of Akhlaq, what is the example you're setting? If you say Pragya Thakur, she comes and she, she curses Karkare, she talks in a lovely language of Godse. What is the message you're sending? Muslim MPs go and take an oath. That is a happy occasion, and you use these kind of slogans. This can be put an end to it. Even now, the Prime Minister should take it seriously. If he, BJP should remember, 5 trillion economy, you cannot achieve that dream in 4 years. If you continue and if you turn a blind eye to such incidents, forget about economy. This will lead to more civil strife, because the more you push this community, as a Muslim, as an Indian Muslim, I'm worried that you are creating alienation, you're creating marginalization, and you're creating a fantastic ground for all those people who do not believe in democracy.
Well, Mamta, you raised your hand to counter what Mr. Owaisi was saying. Does there need to be a more sincere effort on the Prime Minister's part, on the BJP's part, to say that we unequivocally condemn what is happening? It has to stop.
See, Honorable Prime Minister had said and condemned the whole episode of Jharkhand and any lynching for that matter in no uncertain words. Number one. Number two, again, when I say that, there are few people who build this narrative very, very carefully, construct this narrative very, very carefully and then take it forward. They forget, and I want to tell Owaisi Sahab that he must go to Kutch and see when the people of Kutch go to Haji Pir, how Hindus help them and how Hindus do seva. And I am not saying this because I have heard this somewhere or I read this somewhere. No, I have been part of this, sir. I have done this service myself. So this is what, Hindutva is. This is what Bharatiya, being Bharatiya is.
By the way, just to tell you that local Muslims in Kashmir do a lot for those who go for the Amarnath pilgrimage. I'm from J&K. I'm just giving you that gyan.
Let me finish. And there are, it is not about only the Muslims or minorities are being lynched in this nation. No, it's not right. There are lot of lynching which is happening against Hindus also, and I have full, 2 pages full of this, and I picked up few of them. 13 months ago, there was a Muslim family who told this Gangaram that you dare not raise your voice against me and file and complain, because he had actually, kind of assaulted his daughter. And when he did so, Gangaram did this. He said, "Tu meri chhatra chhaya mein reh ke, this is what you are doing."
But is it possible to condemn targeted violence against Muslims without talking about other religions? Is it possible to do it without whataboutery and but? Is it possible to actually, that's why I say, is it possible to unequivocally condemn what has happened in Jharkhand, for example, without saying, but this happened then and this happened to so and so? Farah.
Why do we only talk about one incident, and why do we talk only about Jharkhand? Why don't we talk about Kerala for that matter? Why don't we talk about West Bengal for that matter?
I will read out the statistics.
Why don't we say that lynching is bad? Which is happening from to any community for that matter, and it should be stopped. And
most of the people Mamta, once again, most of the people who have been killed in hate crimes in the last 5 years are Muslims. These are the statistics. You don't have to agree or disagree with me. The statistics are there. The statistics are there. Mamta, please, firstly, no out shouting. Mamta, once again, Mamta, you have to let other people speak. You have to let other people speak. Ma'am, you have to let other people speak.
Split this Ankit Sharma's neck because he was having an affair with his daughter.
Do you remember what Ankit Sharma's father said?
Youth arrested for playing.
Mamta, you cannot hijack this conversation. You cannot hijack this conversation. I will take a break. I will take a break if you hijack this conversation. Mamta, you have to listen to everybody else on this panel. I will keep speaking. I will keep speaking as loudly as you. You have to. I'm sorry. Let this be a civilized conversation. I am trying to read out to you statistics of these are statistics that factchecker.in, for instance, has put together from 2014 to 2019. There have been 266 hate crimes in which 92 people were killed. 63 of them were Muslims, 20 of them were Hindus. Farah Naqvi, of course, all kinds of crime against any religion are bad. But what is making these crimes against Muslims stand out is a sort of an unsaid approval from the establishment or those who support it. And that's what makes it scary.
हमारे गांव में एक ज़माने में और आज तक राम राम कहते हैं एक दूसरे से, लेकिन डंडे की नोक पे नहीं, बंदूक की नोक पे नहीं. ये जबरन दिस जय श्री राम, जय हनुमान, अदरवाइज यू विल बी बीटन अप, इतनी लॉर्ड राम की तौहीन आज तक हिंदुस्तान में नहीं देखी. What happened to Mr. Owaisi in Parliament was another version of that mob lynching. Now, people, yes, of course, there is violence in this country. Nobody is doubting that. There is violence against many communities in this country. The targeted violence against Muslims is extraordinary. It is fueled by a certain culture that has been created. And I'm sorry to say, our very strong Prime Minister, if his words have some meaning, either they are completely ineffectual because he expresses regret and then yesterday Faisal gets beaten up in Thane, again told to shout Jai Shri Ram slogans. This is the pattern. It's gone way beyond cow vigilantism. Tabriz was not beaten up for allegedly storing beef. Faisal in Thane was not beaten up for allegedly storing beef. There is a pattern here, and it's not just the fact checkers that you've cited, Nidhi. There are a dozen fact-checking websites. There are international reports giving us this data. So there's no point denying it. But what I am saying is that there is a larger concern. The fear among minorities, this narrative. It is true, yes, there is fear. There is grave injustice being done, but the burden to uphold the Constitution of India, to save secularism, is not a burden to be borne by the Muslims of this country alone. Injustice will threaten everybody in this country. That is the threat. That is the discussion we need to have today.
Geeta Bhatt.
Yeah, Nidhi, I hope you'll give me as a patient hearing as you give to the fellow panelists. You see, the point is that again and again there has been an emphasis of saying that it is only the minorities and especially the Muslims, not on any other. When you say minority, it becomes synonymous to Muslims. Now, the example, just now Ms. Kale was quoting, I would like to just tell you that Gangaram Chauhan, in Uttar Pradesh, in Aliabad, a small town where there are 100 Muslim families, only 2 Hindu families stay. His daughter, 13-year-old daughter, was abducted by a man called Muhammad Danish. When he goes and files an FIR, Danish and his other family members barged into the house and they lynched Gangaram to death. He's been killed. He's a dead man. Has any responsible channel, even like NDTV? Now, I did not. Can I? You condemn it? You please let me. Let me please.
Totally condemnable.
Please
Hindus attack Muslims and Muslims attack Christians.
Please support me, but let me complete. This is not the way that a decent debate can be conducted. Are you going to stop my fellow panelists to stop and let me complete?
Let Geeta Bhatt finish.
She can show her solidarity with what I am saying.
Mamta, please. Let Geeta Bhatt finish.
Guys, the point is that why is it that responsible leadership from the minority community, like Mr. Owaisi, there have been innumerable cases. Let me just cite just one more. There is a whole page of it. I don't want to get into that. In Auraria last year in Uttar Pradesh, in Auraria district, 2 priests were hacked to pieces in their temple compound just because they filed an FIR against illegal trafficking of beef and killing of cows. They went and filed an FIR. Did any religious leader?
You're saying MPs like Mr. Owaisi need to speak out against all incidents.
Has a responsibility to say what is wrong and let not be selective about it.
Let Mr. Owaisi. One second, guys. One second.
What happened in Jharkhand is condemnable. But the point is, what is important to be said here is that why is it that individuals, when they are coming together, why is it that they are trying to take law into their hand and beating someone to death, whether it is a Hindu or a Muslim, irrespective of.
Okay, let me ask Mr. Owaisi this question about the point Geeta Bhatt has raised before I come. 1 second, Mamta, please. Mr. Owaisi, Mamta Kalia, please.
Selective memory,
Can I please conduct? What suits them? Can we please conduct the debate? Mr. Owaisi, the criticism Geeta Bhatt makes is that lawmakers like you who are responsible MPs need to speak out when the reverse also happens.
the two incidents which Madam has mentioned, they're equally condemnable. But may I request her to please understand that these mob lynching which are happening, these alleged accused are being fully supported by the government of the day. Did any one of us or Sabah Naqvi went and stood with those killers or stood with Ankit? No, we didn't. We want to condemn it, we'll condemn it. Please understand, madam, that you are in power. I mean, I'm sorry, you are the power behind the power anyway. But, you are in power. It is your responsibility to ensure that you discharge your constitutional duty in a fair manner, which you are not doing. Please show us an example where me as an MP or anyone has gone and stood with killers of Ankit. No, we have not. We have not.
Let him finish. Please let him finish. Please let him finish.
I didn't disturb you.
Mamta, please let him finish. Please, I will come to you.
I didn't interrupt you.
Let him finish.
I have a small question. If you can just add to and answer that also along with what you are saying. When Mr. Akbaruddin Owaisi comes out and says that you remove police for 50, police 15 minutes uske baad dekhiye hum kya karke batate. I wish, sir, if you had condemned it and said that this is not how the political leadership, because you are representing the Muslim community.
Let Mr. Owaisi answer that question. Okay, let him answer, please.
Okay. So at least, that kind of, it is not just about, telling yourself to be a minority, because please remember that when you say we are secular, when you say we are secular, that means no appeasement. Secular
can he
means
finish
no
his
appeasement.
point? Okay, Mr. Owaisi.
Madam, please understand that I know the meaning of secularism,
Yes,
which
I'm
is
sure
part
you know
of
better than
preamble,
me. You're a lawyer.
which is part of the preamble. My request to you is that you are in power. For me, secularism means the state remains religious neutral. You don't come out and support the killers. You don't come out and garland them. You don't go and in their funeral. The state. Please half a minute. Please, half a minute. Take the Jharkhand issue. What happened? You have created a mindset of communal behavior wherein had the police given him proper medical attention, he wouldn't have died. This is what is happening. Are you trying to tell me that your governments in power are discharging in a very free and fair manner? No. It's absolutely true. And please show me an example wherein we have condoned any mob lynching. We condemn it. But the fact of the matter is, majority of these killings in mob lynching are Muslims, are Indians basically,
yes,
and that is true.
You come to Indians.
Let me ask Nihira Sood about this point.
This is how we need to take this debate, that they are Indians and let us not into the binary of minority and majority.
Mihira, one of the points here is that in all the high-profile lynchings and cases we've seen in the last 5 years, the fact is that they have gone nowhere. I mean, look at what happened in the Pehlu Khan case and how that fell apart. Look at the Akhlaq case in Dadri and how that fell apart. That is one of the cases where, as Mr. Owaisi points out, a union minister actually went and put the tricolour on one of those accused of killing Akhlaq when he died later on. So justice is not even being seen to be done. And it seems that it's just off the radar.
Yeah. I think there are a lot of issues coming out here. One, as you said, justice is not being done. Now, this either means that the respective state governments are incompetent or they are unwilling. And I don't really know which of the two my co-panelists would prefer to believe about state governments run by their own parties. I think what is intriguing to me over the last 5 years, and it continues with the second version of this government, is that despite having won full majority in the last term, despite having had a government for 5 years, despite having won even a greater majority this time, despite a clear mandate in favor of this government, despite being supported by in large part the majority community, the government, votaries of the government, supporters of the government, ideologues supporting the government, continue to behave as if they are the victims. They are the minorities. You bring up any issue of this kind, and instead of taking it head on and giving an opinion that whether something is right or wrong, whether law and order has been maintained, not maintained, what the police were doing, what the government was doing, and taking an objective view of the whole thing, the statements that come from the government and its supporters, and certainly there is always going to be a difference between crimes that are supported by the government or seen to be supported by the government and crimes that are not. But the response is always defensive. And that's something that for the life of me, I can't understand.
Let me
Who are the real victims here?
Yeah, who are the real victims here? Faizan Mustafa, you in fact had written a piece after Mr. Modi's victory where you said in conclusion that it was heartening to see the PM assuring minorities that he will do some good to his own international image if he takes concrete steps to dispel the fears of minorities, and Muslims should welcome his resolve of winning over their trust. Have you changed that view in the last month, or do you still without hope?
No, I think it's too early for me to straight away say that the hopes have come to an end. The point I'm trying to make, and in fact I ended that Muslims don't want appeasement but justice. Now, number of people ask me, what do you mean by justice? So here I mean by justice a sense of injustices. Do we have empathy for people who have been unjustly treated? And there are any number of Hindu liberals who have come forward, and that's why that gives some kind of solace. Now, about this lynching and killing of Hindus, I think as a criminal law teacher, let me make a distinction. You have to look at whether there is a systematic killing of a group. Now, if some Hindus are killed, say for instance, if a Hindu is in a relationship with a Muslim girl and the girl's father or brothers kill that boy, now this is general, on the basis of caste, interreligious marriages, such things do happen. You also have some people, for commission of a crime, for theft, they exceed power and they indulge in violence. About the mob lynching in general, probably now most people are convinced that there is a design to it. And there is absolute faith of people indulging in it that the state is going to be soft on them. The state is going to defend them. The police will try to invent some theory to justify that kind of crime. I am really, Nidhi, very, very worried as a criminal law teacher that in India now all the time we are taking the name of the victim and name of the accused. Now this is not right, whether it is about Hindus or whether about it is Muslims. But in last 5-6 years, there is a pattern, there is a systematic killing. If I am a criminal and I am also a Muslim, my chances of mob lynch to death are higher than if I am a criminal and I am a Hindu. Now this is not right for a modern liberal democracy,
Mamta, okay.
And we should all be worried about it.
Mamta, just answer though that point that Mr. Owaisi made earlier. Yeah. That when he is attacked or the very few other Muslim MPs who are attacked about, when lynchings happen in the reverse, he's right. None of them have gone and garlanded the accused. In Jayant Sinha's case, he garlanded the convicts. Okay. Right? And another minister went and put, as I said, the tricolour on the body of the man who was accused of killing Akhlaq. So what is the message that gets sent out when that happens?
So this is what is constructive narrative is all about, Nidhi. When Owaisi Sahab goes and delivers hate speech and the Muslim gets charged and then things go otherwise, what do we have to say about it? As a very, I respect him as an individual. And I say, when he does this as a member of parliament,
what has he done?
When you deliver hate speeches, what happens? How can you do this? Number one. Number two.
What hate speech did he give?
When 1 minute, there are many. So
give an
number one. Number two, sir. Number two, sir. I'll come to that.
I urge you.
There are not
accusing him of hate speech. What hate speech?
There are many hate speeches which you have gone and
give an example.
Can I just please? I agree with you. I am the most hated person in India.
No, I did not say that.
Madam, please listen to me.
I did not say that.
Madam, please listen to me.
I did not say that. What
Madam,
I am saying is that you are also a parliamentarian.
Madam, please listen to me.
We all have responsibility.
Madam, please listen to me.
Please,
I urge you.
Let me complete.
I urge you. Madam, I participated.
I did not say when you were saying something.
I
so let me finish what I
in
have
election,
to say.
right? Election in Telangana, in Andhra, in Maharashtra, and Bihar. Please show me one case wherein I have been issued a notice by ECI.
No, I am not doing.
Madam, the cases which I am facing, please go to the Parliament website and check. You cannot stand here and speak generally about me.
No, I am not speaking generally.
I am not
speaking generally,
no,
sir.
You are speaking.
I am speaking.
You are generalizing.
No, I am not generalizing. I am sorry, I am not. I stand by it. Number one. Number two, when the people from various parties and various leaders go to JNU and stand with those people who say, Bharat tere tukde honge, inshallah, inshallah, then everything is fine.
Who said tukde?
Then everything is fine, sir. Why don't you say that was wrong and we can't afford to do these things
you
in
know,
India?
because these are now urban legends.
Capital of India in Delhi, we can't afford to do that. How about raising your voice for that, sir?
Mamta, who said tukde and who stood? You can keep ignoring my questions because I'm asking you facts.
How many have you arrested?
That there are few Hindus. No, sir, there are not few or some Hindus. There are many Hindus, and I can show you the list and numbers, sir. There are many Hindus who have been killed. If you are saying that only based on the love affair, Hindus were being killed, can you justify, sir? Can you justify 2.5 lakh Muslims coming out on road in West Bengal, vandalizing public property, police station, putting the vehicles ablaze? Can you justify that?
When did that happen?
This was happened a few months back, a year back.
Where did you see it?
I will tell you.
Where are your statistics from? 1 second. Can I please ask Mamta? Mamta, firstly, please. Can you please? One second. Let's just try to have a conversation. You cannot. Where are your statistics from? I told you where my data is from. Where is your data from? WhatsApp?
Yeah, this is what had happened in West Bengal. Okay.
No, I'm asking you where is your data on the lynchings from?
Whoop India.
From where you have your data, and my data is very authentic. And this why?
No, I don't know. My data. We are very clearly stating where our data is from. 1 second. 1 second.
When Azam Khan said,
our data is from fact. Geeta Bhatt, 1 second. Mamta ji,
finish.
1 second. 1 second. 1 second. You see, the thing is, I know the tactics are to drown out and to shout when asked questions based on facts. I have two questions. I have just no. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm asking you a simple question. I'm asking you where it's from. I'm asking you where the data is from.
This is the data from West Bengal.
No, I'm asking you that you said that I have a whole list of people who've been lynched. I am asking you, Mamta Kalia, you're not you. I will keep asking. I will keep asking. 1 second. You said you had, madam, you said you had data about the number of people lynched. I am asking you. I told you where our data is from. It's from Fact Checker, from India Spend. Where is your data from? I'm not saying it's good or bad or wrong.
This is a fact
from
of
where?
West Bengal.
From where is this data?
Of West Bengal.
No, where is the?
Check.
You're not answering the question.
Check.
Where is the data from?
I have answered. This
no,
is
you
a
have
fact.
not.
This
Where
is
is
not
the
just
data from?
It is a fact. And this fact is of
It's
West
a fact
Bengal.
because you say
this
it's
is
a
fact of West Bengal.
It's a fact because you say it's a fact.
Where Azam Khan
you accuse Mr. Owaisi of making hate speech. Name one case. Name one case where Mr. Owaisi is booked for hate speech.
No, I have said what I have said and I stand by that.
That's great, Farah.
Can I come in?
Farah Naqvi wants to come in.
On which the BJP has won the election.
No. I really. I am actually.
It is surprising to see that you don't accept facts
when
it comes to.
Everybody seems to have their own facts. Why is it so insulting to ask for a source?
I have given you the source. It is a fact, madam.
Where is the source? You have not given a source. You have told me that you think it is.
Why don't you go and check it yourself? But you don't want to check it.
You don't want to give me a source for data you are citing.
Okay, guys, 1 second. Get it? 1 second.
I do not believe this. That the rights.
What you consider a newspaper and what I consider a newspaper, with all due respect, are two very different things, madam.
This is being questioned. It has been everywhere. There was videography. It was everywhere.
If you're compiling data, Geeta, but surely you can give us source,
I am talking about that. Kalia Chak rights, which she's talking about.
Yes.
It was very much reported in all
I am
the
asking for something else. She said I've got a whole list of incidents with me.
Google it and show you the
I'm asking her what the source of that data is. There's no answer to that question.
It is everywhere.
What is your source? What is everywhere?
The public property
Farah Naqvi.
And no one is.
Okay.
No one is.
Farah Naqvi.
Because this doesn't suit them. That's the problem.
No. The problem is you don't want to give the source of your data. Because you think. I'm sorry. By shouting at me and by shouting at the panelists, you can't win the argument. Farah Naqvi, Mamta, please let Farah speak. Guys, please let, I'll take a break. I have no problem. I'll take a break.
When they were coming back from a funeral
Naqvi,
you will not talk about that either.
Farah Naqvi, want to see how many shows we've done on Bengal, but at least we've based it on facts which we have sourced.
So Kali Check is not a fact.
I am asking you, madam, again I come back.
Is that what
did you not put up a list and say that these are...
Is that what you are trying to suggest to nation, that 2.5 lakh Muslims were not out in Kali Check and they did not do what I had just mentioned?
How do you know it's 2.5 lakh?
Is that what you are saying? That
what is the source of that data? What is the source of that data?
Accept it on your channel today that you say that I disagree and this has not happened and Mamta Kalia is lying.
No, I'm only asking you the source of your data.
Accept it, Nidhi.
Anyway, Farah Naqvi. Farah Naqvi. Alright, I'm going to have to take a break because you don't want to listen to... You cannot outshout. You cannot outshout. Sorry. Farah Naqvi, if you have the energy to speak.
Just making sure that I did actually indeed have the floor. You know, if Madam here with the party in power seeks to swallow up so much of airtime on a show like this, then I truly worry about this democracy. You have to give others a chance to
Please
speak.
take your time and speak up.
Yes, and I will
I
do
did
so
not say when
if
you were
you
speaking.
keep
Let her
quiet.
speak. You are doing that right now.
Let her
I'm
speak.
just correcting her. So please let me do. Thank you.
This is the first time in an age of doing television programming that I have come across a ruling party spokesperson who gives Google as their source. I think that is appalling. Number two, what Farah Mustafa said, I want to repeat because it's gotten lost in this din. This is not a general debate about crimes in India. We are a diverse country. People of different communities, of different castes have committed crimes against each other. What is significant is targeting, systematic, a pattern, and not merely the assurance of impunity subsequent to the crime, but the signal that you should go ahead and commit the crime. Why are we ignoring this completely identifiable Jai Shri Ram, Jai Shri Ram, Jai Shri Ram, अनगिनत आप वीडियोस देख लीजिए, जय श्री राम, ये सिग्नल कहां से आ रहा है? मैं तो I request the Prime Minister, sir, if you mean your words, then make sure that at least Lord Ram's name is not abused in this manner. I am not seeing that. I am seeing speaking in a forked tongue. I am seeing signaling to an international community, because there was a lot of criticism in the international press about the communalism and the division that this party is spreading. To assuage that, to signal to that, a few sabka vishwas phrases were coined, but the signal to the foot soldier, to the mobs out there, has to be very sincere, and it has to be followed up by legal action, by exemplary compensation. You want to talk to me about saving Muslim women? Save Shaista Parveen, a young pregnant widow of Tabriz Ansari. You want to save Muslim women? Save the mother of Pehlu Khan. You want to save Muslim women? These are the litany. This is the double speak as far as it comes to making Muslims feel safe. And yet I will reiterate, Constitution is there. That is the book on which this party has sworn its oath to govern, and that is the book by which I uphold my right to hold them entirely accountable, and we shall continue to do so despite not getting enough airtime.
Well, I mean, I have given you the floor right now, but Geeta Bhatt, one very important point, and Mr. Owaisi had raised this in a soundbite or an interview earlier, is the lack of representation of Muslims in our parliament. The BJP has not a single Muslim MP. It is ruling this country. What does that say about the state of affairs today?
Well, Nidhi, you see, I mean, when it comes to electoral politics, it is winnability, which is something which no, I'm not going into that. So this is what a party decides. It is a party representative can answer that better. But the point here that for example, when she was talking of a lot of videos, I wonder whether she saw it on internet or whether she saw it somewhere. I mean, everyone, since she was questioning about Google and about internet, everything, today all the data that everyone, even what you are quoting, you have taken it from internet.
No,
so
I haven't
keeping
taken it
that
from
point
internet.
aside.
I've taken it from an organization we have tied up with.
That is true. So when she's talking about videos, I'm sure she
because
also
if you
must have seen
Google,
somewhere.
there's a
Now
lot
the
of
point
stuff on
is-
Google
let
which
me-
is
let me
false.
just-
Mamta, please let her
Can
speak.
I
Please,
just-
And it is a
can I-
reported
please let her
crime.
speak.
Can I
Yeah.
just chat?
Please go ahead.
Now the point, I'm just giving, another question mark to many various question marks she raised. So I gave another question mark to that. Now, but the point here is that while it is being talked about that, saving the wives and mothers of lot of, of the Muslims who have unfortunately because of such incidences, they have been killed. But, what about when a Ramalingam in Tamil Nadu gets, hacked to pieces?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what about his wife? Why the minority community also when they are talking about the privileges that they want to have, they are also part of this
What is
society
the
and they
privilege?
have to contribute.
What is the privilege?
They have
What
to
is the
contribute
privilege?
to
What is privilege?
They have to. Can I please just complete?
Right to life is not a privilege.
Right to
madam.
life, but your selectivity is something which I am questioning. Why are you not talking about others? Why are you not talking about Prashant Pujari, who was hacked to pieces in Karnataka? Neither the Kerala Chief Minister nor the
What
Delhi
are the
Chief Minister
privileges
thought
that
of
you
going
talked about then?
and talking
I'm
about and
curious.
gave them heavy compensation, which of course
Should
is welcome, which
minorities-
has been given
should
to
minorities
a
be
Clark
grateful
family or to some other
to be
family.
part of this country?
But why is it that why these people who have been in such similar circumstances, let us talk about Indians. The problem is that if Mr. Owaisi or my fellow panelist, if they are going to talk about the Indians who are being
But they
killed,
have.
that is something which
He
should
gave you
be
an answer to
talked
that.
and not in terms
He
of
gave you an
binaries as
answer to that.
minorities and
They
majorities.
have talked about it.
Can I?
Has he gone and stood? Has he gone and stood with the killers? Has he gone and garlanded the killers? Has he garlanded the killers? Has he garlanded the killers?
I think we should just stick to that point. We should just stick to that point.
Did he go to jail? Firstly,
During the parliament session says that Vande Mataram is anti-Islam. Is Mr. Modi going to support it and it should not be spoken? This is what a Samajwadi
Speaking
Party
about
is
surely a matter of choice.
Vande Mataram. Is he going to support
This
it?
is something complete. It's not
No,
about
it is
Vande
not
Mataram.
completely out of
Mr. Owaisi,
context.
Mr.
It is very much
Owaisi.
out of context.
One second. Mr. Owaisi.
You have to. It is a specific debate.
Nidhi,
But it is
Mr.
specific.
Owaisi.
Why? Just because you want
Okay,
to talk
Geeta
about
Bhatt, Geeta,
minorities.
Mr. Owaisi.
You are a part of this land.
One second,
culture,
one second.
civilization.
Why can't we
your
say that
forefathers
lynching
were
is a
also
problem
part of
with
this
every
Hindu
community?
civilization.
Nidhi,
You did not
lynching
come
is a
from
problem
abroad.
because it's affecting every community.
Okay, guys,
Other parties are not going and
We're talking at cross purposes.
Because ministers
Okay,
from
Mr.
other
Owaisi.
parties are
All
not
right.
going and
All right, guys.
Standing with people is different from going and garlanding killers.
Okay.
Have genuine people murdered and
Gender-wise.
murdered anybody.
Gender-wise.
Have
Okay,
genuine
okay,
people
Mamta,
murdered anybody.
Guys, one second. Mamta, 1 second. Mr. Owaisi. Mr. Owaisi.
Murdering people is fine with you.
It's not.
Mihra.
You are defending people who have gone and garlanded killers.
I say that lynching is bad. If you lynch,
Then why don't you
lynch anyone, be it Hindu, Muslim, Sikh, Isai, is bad, and this is what
Have you
our
condemned
Prime Minister has
ISIS?
been saying.
All right, guys, 1 second.
Don't just say that Muslims are being lynched
What
and
have you
Muslims
done?
are being
Have you
targeted.
condemned?
Please.
Have you condemned?
Please.
Have you condemned
Just
Mr. Jansina?
We have done what
Have
we
you
have to do.
condemned Mr.
But have you
Chancellor?
condemned who
Have you
people who
condemned?
have
Okay,
been
I mean, we're going to be here all night.
Have
Okay,
you
1 second,
condemned? Have you
ladies.
done that? Source for
Have
that?
you done that? It is if you.
All right,
if you
Mamta
cannot-
and
if you
Mihra,
cannot
I have to
understand
interrupt
Mr.
here so
Jansina,
that we can go to
that
Mr.
it is
Owaisi.
authentic,
Mamta,
it was
Mamta
a
Kalia, please.
crime. It was
Mamta,
reported by police, then it is
Mamta,
your
we
problem.
just have time
You
for
got
last
it read
comments, please. Let's get good last comments from everyone.
You've not
Mr.
read it,
Owaisi
and
first.
you should
Mamta
not
Kalia,
have
please.
information
Mamta,
to
please.
Any of the debate.
Okay.
You should have your
Mr.
information complete and then come on a
I'm
channel.
extremely thankful to the RSS spokesperson.
I'm
the
not a RSS spokesperson.
Okay, anyway, from the BJP, that you have thankfully exposed the real intention and the real face of Mr. Modi. This is sabka vishwas, and I'm sure the people watching this channel would form their own opinion what sabka vishwas means. Thank you so much, because you have proven me right that sabka vishwas was just a charade, a lie on the part of the government. Secondly, Nidhi, I want to know from the government what happened to the Supreme Court ordering this government to frame a law on mob lynching. Have you forgotten that the judge of Supreme Court said that lynching is a lynching of the Constitution? Let me conclude by saying that you are in power. It is your constitutional duty to protect the life of each and every Indian citizen. You cannot discriminate on the basis of whether it's Hindu or Muslim. So long as you support people who praise Godse, so long as you support people who curse Karkare, so long as you people shout down Muslim MPs, be rest assured this will continue. This is not sabka vishwas. This is barbadi of the nation.
Mihira,
This
your
will
last
lead to
comments.
I think it's pointless to have a debate when there are people citing fake news, refusing to give sources for their data, refusing to answer pointed, blunt questions as to when you're talking about selectivity, none of us have gone and garlanded or celebrated anybody's killers. But where were you when people from your own party were doing that? There is no response. It is always just shouting. It is deflecting. It is what about this? There is no straight answer. There is no real data. There is no facts. There is no sources. It's impossible to have a debate.
Farah Mustafa, you think it's impossible to even have a conversation? Because I worry when Mihira says that, because if we can't even have a conversation about these issues, then they're just going to be dead and buried on page 13, if at all, of a newspaper. And they shouldn't be.
It is becoming difficult to have a conversation. Now, I will go back. The question is that forget about the minority status. Every citizen of this country under right to life has a right to live with dignity. Right now, the kind of lynching and targeting which is happening and a design and a pattern you see in such killings shows that it is a liability to be a Muslim or to have a Muslim name. And that is absolutely unacceptable in a plural democracy like India. If in our election campaign people cannot even talk of secularism as a word, then I think we are heading for some kind of problem. But I would still say that Prime Minister should not be trusted for saying that we have to win over sabka vishwas. It is very difficult for the Prime Minister himself to discipline his cadre because now it is a big monster. There may have been some kind of, implied or tacit approval initially, but even if he wants sincerely, it will be very difficult for him to rein in these kind of undesirable elements within his cadre.
Well, Farah Naqvi, then I'll ask you this question, which is what Farah Mustafa said about secularism not being spoken about, being a bad word, even in our election campaign. And is that part of the problem? That, frankly, it took Rahul Gandhi more than 30 hours to put out a tweet on what happened in Jharkhand. And that came after so much backlash on social media. I remember when Pehlu Khan happened and other incidents happened in Rajasthan, the Congress refused to come and take part in TV programs because they were playing it safe. And is that part of the problem with our politics in India today? That the opposition is the way that it is and it feeds into this.
I couldn't agree with you more. This election was deeply disappointing for those of us who felt that there needed to be an overt secular option, even if that option did not win you elections. There was complete deafening silence on part of the leading secular, so-called secular parties of India on questions to do with human rights, minority rights, on this lynching, so on, a range of issues. I mean, it's too long a fairest for me to list. Of course, that is part of the problem, and that is a problem when you have an opposition that is incapable of holding a government to account on the constitution on which it has sworn. Then it is up to the citizens of this country. I actually have hope. The number of protests that have taken place because Tabriz's brutality touched and moved the anguish of the Indian people was visible when you go out there and you go to these protests. The people of India, I have faith in that still. The people of India is what will call these opposition parties as well as the ruling party to account. But I am deeply disappointed today. This is the first time I am debating members of the ruling party. This is a duty and a responsibility to answer questions, to be able to hold yourself accountable to the highest standards that I as a citizen of this country want to hold you for. To indulge in this kind of whataboutery that I've seen on this show is a very shameful first first initiation for me into what these coming 5 years are going to be like, and I would urge the BJP to course correct. Don't allow the arrogance of power to turn into this kind of hubris, which will be your downfall.
Well, I think one thing you said very well, and it's a good note to end on, is that if the opposition's not going to do it, citizens will. And we will continue to ask the questions that need to be asked. Thank you to all of you for joining us on The Big Fight. Good night.